Capture. All right. As far as I can tell, we're live. As far as I can tell, you should be able to hear me. Let me make a quick adjustment here. You don't really need to see that much of me. That's okay. So welcome to the video. Thank you for everybody who checks us out. If you drop in live, I'm going to be monitoring the chat and answering any questions or talking with whoever comes in. Otherwise, if you're watching this on review or recorded, again, thank you so much. What we're going to be doing today is I'm going to be drawing and talking about the last main character update to provide you all about my my book and my characters from M Squad. M Squad #1 is coming up and coming out. The Kickstarter is going to launch on Monday, May 1st, so only a couple days away. And at that point, you'll be able to go on to Kickstarter and pre-order your copy of M Squad #1. This piece of artwork here is going to be one of the trading cards that will be available through the stretch goals. So stretch goals are, if you're not familiar with Kickstarter, once you get past your initial financial goal, what you're trying to accomplish, other things get opened up for everybody who's a backer, and they don't have to provide any additional money. They don't have to back anything else. These are goodies and extras that you get just for helping me achieve that goal so that I can print copies of this comic and get it out to all of you. So today we're going to be drawing the last character who is the leader of the team, and his the character's name is called Gravite, and he can control gravity. So he has the ability to interact with these imaginary forces that in comic book land are referred to as gravitons, which is like a particle that is what makes gravity. So he can control the individual effects of gravity on individual things, be that an individual person or object. So he can make it lighter, he can make it heavier, he uses it to fly, he can put a field around other people and help them fly. So you'll see that in M Squad #1. He uses that ability with the team to help some of the other teammates who can't fly. There's only one other character, and that's called Nova, and he can fly, but the rest of the team cannot. So when they need to get somewhere in the air, Gravite is there to make it happen. So right now I am just very loosely filling out the form of the figure and where it's going to be. And he has his cape, because he has a cape blowing around him. And then start to fill in these details. So this is one of the things that if you've seen any of my other drawing videos, sort of the instructional type of video, a lot of what I talk about is for, I always use the term younger artists, or newer artists, I guess would be better, so because age doesn't matter. But one of the things you have to do is you have to figure out your shape, your form, what you're trying to accomplish. If you just start drawing, an eyeball and then a nose and a mouth and an ear, next thing you know, things don't line up and it doesn't fit with the rest of the form. So it's really important to do this piece, which is what we call underdrawing. So I'm just working out where the shapes are, where the basic outline of the body is going to fit and go. And if it doesn't work, it's easy enough for me to go ahead and erase it. If I want to add lines, remove lines, move an arm, move a leg, it's much easier to do it at this stage through this underdrawing component than it is to do it in the final drawing piece. So that's what we're working on here. And then there'll be something, I don't know, there'll be a tree, or there'll be something to help balance that out a little bit. And then I'm going to put in, if I'm comfortable with that, I'm going to put in some of the details of the lines of where the costume goes. So this is his superhero team costume. If you've seen any of the other videos that I've done with M Squad #1, the promo videos I've done, and you've seen that the characters are not in these superhero costumes in the first issue. That is part of the story. They start off in a much more kind of realistic outfits, uniform, whatever you want to call it, and the idea of changing to a flashier superhero style of costume is actually part of the story development for issues 2 and 3. And you know, because of all of the support and you know all the feedback that I've gotten from everybody watching the videos and commenting, whether it be YouTube or Facebook or anywhere like that, I have been really excited and very optimistic about how things are going. You know, I made this first comic without any idea of whether I'd be able to make a second comic. But things are going really well, and I feel very confident that, you know, I'm going to be able to make this happen, to become a self-publisher, to continue this process. And so I've actually started drawing issue 2 of M Squad. I have a page that I'll be working on later that I'm really excited about. It's really fun to draw, and I believe it's page, I don't want to give it away, so I'm looking to the side here. I believe it's page 4. So I'm already on to page 4 of M Squad #2, and you know, that's all because of everybody here. So everybody who's watched and liked, shared, anybody who's gone to Kickstarter and clicked the notify me button so that you know when the campaign goes live. All those things have really helped to build my confidence in continuing with this. So M Squad #1 hopefully is not going to be a one and done. I have scripts. I am beginning to have some art, so I'm ready to go with issues 2 and 3, and the initial storyline goes through issue 5. So there's a sort of a 5-issue arc to start with, and carries through and kind of culminates, and then we move on to some other things. So I have a bunch of stories in mind, and all of you are making that happen. So thank you so much. So when he uses his powers, he glows. So there's going to be kind of a glow around him. Okay. So there we go. So there is the basic outline and form in pencil of kind of what I'm looking for. I've got it lined up. I'm okay with where the arms and stuff are. I might move that cape line there. So there's some, obviously, a lot of details that have to be worked out. This is not enough of a finished thing. So let me see if I can zoom in a little bit without messing up the camera too bad. I'm looking at the various screens to see so that you can see as I start to work on some of the detail here. Okay, so that should be pretty good. So I always start with the face and the eyes. I think most people would tell you that. Most artists will tell you the eyes are the most important. That expression and the face and those kinds of things. If you get that wrong, the whole thing doesn't work. And so typically you start there so that you can correct and like that. His eyes glow when he uses his powers, so I don't need to draw in his pupils. And then I can also share basic supplies and things I'm working on with. So this is just this is a pilot mechanical pencil with some HB lead in it. You can get this at any office supply store. That's what I do for most of this pencil work. And then if it's a little bit smaller and faces, I go with this one. This is I think a .03. So it's a smaller piece of lead, and that will help just to get smaller details and things like that. So you could use it for everything. Some people do, but I like the slightly smaller details. So, and what you're going to find here for me is that this is what I'm going through now. Even these lines here are not finished lines. These are not the final lines per se. This is sort of draft number 2, if you will. And what I do is I work on it kind of like, I guess in a way like clay, or sort of like sculpting. Like I'm going to take I take away the big chunk. So drawing out this kind of thing is sort of chipping away the big pieces of stone or clay, and then having a rough form, and then going in and starting to shape some of the details, and then from there going in and refining and smoothing. And so there's a lot of sort of passes and steps with the way that I draw the figure, with the way that I draw anything, where I'm working that those shapes and the shadows and the weights and all that kind of stuff over and over until I get just the line I'm looking for. So let's see. And as I said, if somebody jumps in and is in the chat and has questions and things like that, I'd be happy to talk about it, answer it, have a conversation. If there's nobody there, then you get to just listen to me ramble, which is always fun. So let's see, what else can I tell you about Gravite? So again, this is the leader of the team, and when I'm trying to think of some history. So when I first created the character, I don't remember why or where the inspiration came from, but he started out, he had a diamond shaped crystal on his chest that would light up when he used his powers. And that was the crystal wasn't what gave him his powers. In the world of M Squad, people who have superpowers are people who are born with superpowers, basically. There could be other reasons. There are some other things. There are people who, in that universe, there are some aliens and people who are cyborgs and all the classic superhero trappings, right, are there. But the characters on M Squad, all of them are born with their powers. It's a issue of genetics and evolution, and so they are referred to as opposed to us as humans are Homo sapiens. They are Maximus sapiens, meaning they have maximized their genetic potential, and this is what gives them superpowers. And so instead of the M comes from that Maximus. So the general population refers to most people with superpowers as M's. And so M Squad is a team that is dedicated to um, monitoring, policing, helping um, M's throughout the world who are either using their powers dangerously or who are don't are in danger of from their powers or from people that want to use them to abuse their abilities, all that kind of stuff. Again, pretty classic. You know, if you read superheroes comics, pretty pretty common. But anyway, so his powers come from himself. They're not from this crystal that he had on his chest. But he had a crystal, and he always had a cape. And in a time of superheroes where capes aren't always cool unless you're Batman, um, you know, time passed. This again, for anybody who's new to these are characters and a concept that are 35 years old now. So in 1988, capes were still fine. Superheroes wore capes. That's not a big deal. That's what they do. So I've had to come up with a more creative way to justify why, in today's world, would this guy have a cape on? And the answer is that the cape it does a couple of things. One is that it's historically a sign of leadership. You know, if you go through history, through human history, you see, you know, Roman generals. You see kings and queens and people of nobility and other sort of leaders in time would have capes and cloaks and things to help identify them as who they are. And then, so that's part of it. The other part is that his power does help him levitate and fly, but it's not propulsion the way you would think of, like he doesn't have rockets or things like that. So he has to be creative in how he uses the gravity to move him through space. And having the cape is something that helps him to maneuver as he's flying. So it's a twofold thing. It's a psychological thing as well as a functionality, and that's so there's a little insight into that which you'll see in issue 2. Let's see what else about the history. Oh yeah, so he's the leader of the team, and you know, when I was a kid and doing this, everybody was just sort of the same. And what I mean by the same is everybody looked the same. All the men had sort of the same faces. He had a mask and sort of this big curly hair on top. And I realized pretty quickly that other than saying, well, this guy's the leader, there was nothing that really identified, like, why is this guy the leader? And so I made a decision that I wanted him to look older, so that he would be the adult of the team versus then trying to draw other characters like Nova or Spectrum as younger characters. So again, how do you show age? You can do it when you have close-ups. You can do more lines on their faces, around their nose and mouth, the eyes. You can have a slightly higher forehead. Their hair is starting to recede a little bit. And then one of the other tricks of the trade is you give them some white hair. And white hair at the temples, if you, again, this pretty standard comic stuff, tends to be associated with characters of intelligence, like Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four. And again, conveys a sense of age. He's a little bit older. He's starting to go gray a little bit. And so so I added the gray temples. And was kind of the next design piece to this character. And that's something that even at a distance, so like this, where the drawing is fairly small, and this is going to be reduced to the size of a trading card. Um, so at a smaller size or at a distance, you can see that white hair to the side, and it's an easy way visually to convey, again, that age, where he's not old, but he's older than some of the other members of the team. And again, it's a psychological way to convey leadership. So, and let's see, what else can I tell you about this guy? He trying to think of what can I tell without spoiling too much. He was. Oh, somebody's asking me. When does my Kickstarter go live? May 1st. Kickstarter goes live May 1st. May 1st. So Monday. So you'll see actually in issue 2 of M Squad that some of his past is going to be revealed a little bit. He has contacts within the, I don't know what I call it. Well, it's the FBI. So if you have contacts within the FBI and the CIA and things like that, then, you know, the government's not policies. Anyway, he has contacts within those organizations, so that predate his time in leadership of M Squad. So that's going to come up in issue 2. What else? Eventually, we'll see, and I'm not sure what issue this will come into play with, but eventually we'll see that he's a single dad. He has a son. If I'm trying to remember, his son's name might be Jeff. I don't remember. I may change that, but Gravite's real name is Eric Mason. And his son, his teenage son, also has superpowers, and that will come into play hopefully at some point. It's not part of the initial 5-issue plan that I have, but I did have some plans from back in the day about the other characters. There's a couple other team family members that you haven't seen yet, and some other superpowered beings that are part of M Squad's responsibilities and part of that program. So some interesting stuff down the line. But yeah, so that'll get revealed. What else is cool about Gravite? At one point so again, for the history, for anybody who's missed the earlier videos, I came up with this idea of this superhero team and the idea of making a comic book in 1988, and I tried to make a comic book using copy paper and ballpoint pens and markers, and really had no idea what I was doing. But I did, and realized I had a lot to learn and a long way to go, and so never gave up the idea that I could create a comic based on these characters and this concept. So continued to rework it in my head, and made a number of changes as far as some of the character backgrounds, what the team makeup. There have been a couple of characters who have come and gone um, from the original incarnation, and then just kept at it, kept reworking the story, reworking it, updating it, etc. And so here we are now, to where an issue 1 is completely ready to go. It's ready to go to print, and I'm super excited about it. So where was I going with that? So that's the history of where this comes from, and the characters and that kind of stuff. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So there was a point where I would, sort of in my head, I would have an idea. I had a good, 5 or, well, actually at one point I think I had kind of written down plot ideas for something like 20 or 25 issues. It was going to involve, at one point there was some time travel, there was another dimension, multiple other dimensions, new characters being added, teen characters being added, all kinds of stuff. And at one point, I played with the idea that there were there were like 4 beings who controlled sort of I'm trying to remember how I termed it. They controlled the, not crucial parts, but like they controlled the, pull back a little bit as we're getting into inking. See if you can see a little better. So they control the fundamental, that's what I was looking for, the fundamental forces of the universe. So you had somebody who controlled electricity, sort of electromagnetism. There was somebody that controlled, gravity is one of them. Somebody who controlled nuclear bonding, and then I don't remember who the other one was, but there were these people, and Gravite turns out to be one of these fundamental beings, and through various plot machinations, he ends up going dark, and his costume goes from being blue and gold to black and gold, and was going to become a very dark character, and leave and end up disappearing for a while from M Squad, and they were going to have a new team leader come in that was one of these other 4 characters, and yeah, so that was one idea that I toyed with, and so I have a bunch of drawings from this time in the early 90s of dark Gravite, where his like I said, his costume is all black and gold, and he has a helmet, very Magneto-y. He's got this helmet that shades his face so you can't see what's going on, and yeah. So that was an early idea that I was working through. Yeah, the character has gone through a lot of costume changes. I do have, let's say I don't have a sketch. I do have an early sketch of the character from a sketchbook. It's black and white, and it's just in pencil. But it's your pretty classic superhero. He's got a mask that covers his eyes, but his hair sticks out the top. He's got the diamond jewel in the front of his chest that lights up when he uses his powers, and he still has the cape, and he's got the boots, and of course he's got the jockey shorts on the outside of the costume as well. So very very classic stuff, very classic superhero style costume, right? And from there, things got simplified some. Um, there was a point where the his his cape ended up almost being like a sash. So the diamond would be in the middle of his chest, and part of the cape would go up over one shoulder, and the other part would go down by his waist and sort of hang off to the side. Um, there was that design for a while. I'm trying to think of what other designs that went through. He stayed pretty classy, you know, and then he went with or without a mask. Some, you know, the idea is he doesn't necessarily need a secret identity per se. Once I kind of got, you know, bought into the idea that these guys, the M Squad is a government military um, position, force, squad, whatever you want to, however you want to put it. Um, but they're authorized and work through the military. So there's a support team they have a base of operations, all that kind of stuff. Originally, they didn't have any of that kind of stuff. They had a base, and we never explained why. We never really explained where they come from, what they do, like how do they get this stuff? How do they go from place to place? So so once I kind of locked into like this guy has worked for, like I said, the CIA, the FBI, these kinds of organizations in the past. He's got a military background, so he doesn't really need a secret identity in that um, he doesn't do anything else. Like he doesn't have another life. He's not a reporter at a major metropolitan newspaper. Um, he's not a lawyer by day. Like this is his job. This is what he does. So there's really no need to hide. Um, so that once I did that, then there's really no need for a mask. So there was times where he would not have a mask as he does now. Let's see. So he's using his powers. So instead of like a tree or something like that in the background, we'll just have him lifting. It'll be classic. We'll put in some. We put in a ground level that has rocks and some rubble. Something's happening, and then he's lifting up bits and pieces and stuff, and then it'll be glowing, and then it'll help balance that out. That'll work. Again, this is a trading card. So if you think about like the size of your baseball trading cards, or what I did was I actually went to there's the Marvel cards. So I don't know if anybody, again, dating myself into the 90s. Um, Marvel did a couple of different sets of superhero trading cards. Were really really popular at the time, and um, they're actually really cool. They had a variety of really good artists that did the cards that were really really neat. And so what I did is I actually had some of those collected somewhere in a drawer. So I pulled one out and I measured it, and then used those dimensions and scaled up to this size, which I felt like it was a good working size. I could get 4 of these on one piece of paper, so I would be maximizing the space. And then once I complete the art and scan it into the computer, I can resize for printing, and then it gets printed at the right size. So these are going to be the size of, like I said, the your typical trading card kind of sports card, or if you're down with the superhero trading cards, that's what they'll be. And so putting in a ton of detail, yeah, I'm not gonna. I just you don't put in a ton of detail into the backgrounds and that kind of stuff because it's going to be scaled down. You're going to lose some of those things anyway. So you just want something to sort of help convey the scene, can help identify, help people who aren't familiar with the character, like here's what they can do. So some of the other ones, like my werewolf character Fang is running through a wooded area, and it's just sort of some bushes and trees, and it's nothing super fancy. Nova is using his flame power to fly in the air, and there's just, how do you know he's flying in the air? There's some clouds and some birds in the sky. That's how you identify it. Nothing fancier than that. Just because it's going to get reduced down. And that's actually something I've talked about it some in the some of the other videos that I've done, where I've shown how I draw, comic pages. So you take a script, and once you start getting into a comic book page that has, 5, 6, 7. I've done comic book pages with 9 panels. Um, this whole piece of paper that I'm using is 11 inches by 17 inches. And with a comic book, the area you're drawing inside of is 10 inches by 15 inches. So if you start putting 9 panels, I mean, at best, they're going to be somewhere around the 1 by 1. So 1 inch by 1 inch. Maybe 1.5 by, some could be a little bigger, some a little smaller. But I mean, you're talking about drawing stuff that's only a couple of inches in size, and then that's going to be reduced down to an actual comic book size. So that panel could be tiny. And so there's no need to go ahead and kill yourself and put in every little bit of every line, every detail, every hatching, every texture line, all that kind of stuff, because nobody's ever going to see it on the printed page. Now, somebody may see it if you have originals, if you sell originals, if you want to print the black and white art as this oversized type of book. There's a lot of those out that are really cool. But unless you're going to do that, nobody's ever going to see it. So don't waste the effort to do that. Now, I bring this up because I've seen people who work digitally, which obviously I don't. But if you've ever worked or done anything artistically on a computer with like a tablet, I think what you'll find is it's very easy to get caught up in zooming in so tight and working microscopically. Like, you can zoom in on this little piece of stone right here, and you can start, and in your screen it's this big, right? It takes up your whole monitor, and you can just go in and put all these texture lines, and where did the stone break, and is there however you like to render stone. And I can go in and go crazy with it, because the whole stone is, like I said, in on your screen it's this big. It's huge. Scale down, that thing is just a little bit bigger than my thumbnail. Like, it's the size of half of my thumb. and then it's going to be reduced down further than that. So you're not necessarily gaining anything, and to me, that's one of the downsides of working digitally that I've seen is people can get completely absorbed into, I'm going to work microscopically. I'm going to zoom in so far and have all these insanely tiny lines that will never see the light of day in print. Now, there is a speed element to working digitally that's definitely helpful. You can do your layouts, you can move things by dragging it. There have been times when I've drawn stuff and gotten most of the way done and realized there was a problem and had to start over because I don't have a way of, like, I just want to move that head that much further. Doesn't work that way when you're working live. When you're working with, pen and paper. When you're doing it with computer, lasso it, cut, drag it, move it, fix the lines, you're good to go. So that part of it I can see would be really nice, but as far as the rest of it, I don't know. Plus, it still kills me that you don't have any originals. You've got files. Files are great, but I think if we've learned anything, at least this initial experiment with NFTs, and I could be wrong, it feels like the NFT thing has come and gone. Like, people were like, this is the wave of the future. These are digital collectibles, right? This is a one-of-one piece of art that's coded, so when you buy it, nobody else can reproduce it, can have it. This is yours. This is a way to turn digital files into collectible items. It seems to not have gone anywhere. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not hearing about it. Maybe I'm not in the right circles. I don't know. But that concept of the NFT doesn't seem to have translated as well as the idea of original art. And I say that based on, if you go online and you want to buy, a piece of original comic book art from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and that sounds like a long time. 20 years ago is the early 2000s. 30 years ago is the early 90s. So, I mean, you're not even talking about Silver Age art. You're not certainly not talking about Golden Age art. You're talking about fairly modern stuff that anybody my age who's, middle age could have bought off a rack. I mean, you're talking about comics that you bought at the drugstore. If you want to buy an original art page of that stuff, you are paying through the nose for it today. And that's compared to what it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So original art prices have really gone up. Now, am I going to be selling my original art for those kinds of prices? Probably not. That would be awesome, but probably not. But, one of the things that I had toyed with in this Kickstarter campaign, which I didn't do, but I may end up doing for another project that I'm working on, is there may be a backer tier, is what they call it, where for a certain amount of money, you're going to get copies of the book, you're going to get all the goodies, but you also can get a piece of original art to go with it. And that's obviously would be a much higher price backer tier, but if you work digitally, how could you do that? You can't. You have no piece of paper to send the person. And I think, again, if we've learned anything, we learned that people aren't super excited about owning a file. You can't frame a file. I guess you could make a print of the file, but I think people want it. People want to hold it. People want to look at it and feel where the artist, used a whiteout or where the artist, what's the underdrawing? Can I see any of the underdrawing underneath? Or sometimes you can get a piece of original art and you flip it over and there'll be sketches and stuff on the back, or they started on the back, they went, no, that didn't work, and they flipped it over, and it's like you get an extra little bonus insight, which is really cool. So I don't know, this is my rant about digital art versus traditional art and why I like original line art. Now, as far as coloring goes, yeah, digital, certainly for print, it's all digital. You got to go digital. Unless you're going to do a completely hand-painted book like Alex Ross or somebody like that, more power to you if you can pull that off. That's amazing. But yeah, otherwise, digital coloring is great. M Squad #1 is completely digitally colored. Looks fantastic. I'm very, very happy with it. And then, but on the flip side, I do I can do a little bit of digital coloring. I'm not great at it. I'm always learning, and I'm super slow at it. Excuse me. So that's why typically I will contract a colorist to digitally color anything of mine that I'm going to have go to print. So sometimes that is just prints. If anybody who has seen the video has ever seen me at a comic book convention, I have these prints of the artwork that I've made that are full color, 11 by 17 prints that you can buy, and those are all digitally colored, and most of the time colored by another artist that I've contracted to do the work, because they're a lot better than I am, and I know my limitations. But if you've ever gotten a convention commission or sketch from me, you know that one of the options that I have there is color. I will do color art at conventions and things, and that I do hand coloring with Copic markers, which I like a lot. They have a really cool feel and a really cool look, and they're clean. They're easy, very easy to transport. So I will do hand coloring work. I will do some coloring work myself, if you will. But again, usually it's either a commission, somebody's reached out to me, or it's a convention sketch. Something to that effect. Let's see. Alrighty. Get a slightly smaller pen. These are Tombow brush pens, and I don't remember where I found out about these. If it was online, maybe. I know there's certainly plenty of other artists that use them. So it might have been somebody else's live stream where I saw that information and was like, oh yeah, let me try those. I may have just seen them. I love to go to art stores, art supply stores, and just sort of look for new stuff and give it a shot. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I love trying new art supplies and seeing how they go. So, but anyway, these Tombow brush pens are fantastic. I really like them a lot. They're pretty inexpensive, so I highly recommend them. So I've got kind of the big blocks in there, and now I'm going to come back in and blend them out with some hatching. I say hatching. Is it hatching if it's just straight lines? Is that still hatching? Feathering? is it hatching but not cross hatching? Hmm. Um, a lot of my so again going back to the times of you know the 90s when I was in high school and college and trying to work out my art style and continuing to learn. I did a lot of cross hatching because it was very popular. That was the inking style, the way comic art looked at that time. Mostly, we tend to attribute it to the Image Comics guys, um, and then maybe because it was done so much, it fell out of favor. So it got to a point where I would do artwork, and in the early days of the internet, excuse me, there were message boards and things, and I would put my artwork up for critique, to find out how could I improve, how could I get better, and I would get the first thing everybody would say is, "Oh, it's so '90s. Oh, it's so '90s. Your stuff's so Image, it's so '90s." To me, that's a compliment. I mean, I think that stuff was amazing artwork, um, but I realized it was that cross hatching. So if you're not familiar with cross hatching, I'll show you real quick. I'll use a bigger pen to kind of demonstrate. I'll use a real big pen to demonstrate. So cross hatching is you have, so with your black and white art, you have really two values. You have black, you have white. There's really nothing in between black and white. We don't work in gray. So how do you get gray? So if I want to transition from black to white, but I want to have something in between, one of the ways you can do it is you put in black lines that are spaced out. And this says it's not black, it's not white. Your eye reads in between and says that it's gray. The more lines you add, the more gray it becomes to help with that transition. So if I make lines one way and I come back and cross them, and then I space that out, and feather that out, that is what you refer to as cross hatching. So you can go more and more and more until you have something that goes from black to white and kind of approximates gray in the middle. So the question is, if I have to cross the lines for it to be cross hatching, does that mean just straight lines are hatching? Is that what that is? And the reason I bring it up is I think what happened for me is after so many years of cross hatching and having people go, ugh, so old, that's such an old technique, that's old school, I started just using more straight lines, so more hatching as opposed to cross hatching to sort of blend out some of those from black to white. Okay. And so this card will be digitally colored, so I can leave more open space. Like, for example, I don't have to put in a big black shadow at the bottom. I can use color to identify that he's standing on that, so I can give him a shadow through color. Same as the background. I can make this background slightly darker and give it a slightly more blue look. That'll push this rock in the background further from what's in the front. So beyond that, this is pretty much done. I will do a little more, as I mentioned, texture that you can't see on the rocks just for the heck of it. And there we go. And there's a drawing of Gravite from M Squad for the trading card art. That'll be unlocked if we hit our Kickstarter stretch goals. So thank you for checking this video out. I really appreciate it. I do want to leave you with this image that I did. And so this is the link to Kickstarter. So you can see kickstarter.com/project/cherryrascos/m-squad-issue-1. That is long. I understand completely. You can just go to Kickstarter, you can search M Squad, or you can go to Kickstarter and you can search my name. Or you can try this QR code. You scan the QR code, it should take you directly to this link where, as of today, it's not live yet, you can still go and click on the Notify Me button. This will alert you the instant that we go live on May 1st. So right now my plan is to go live sometime around probably close to 4 p.m. Central Time, May 1st. Campaign will be up for 45 days. You can check it out. Check out all the cool options that we have. There are multiple covers. There are some options for sketches on covers. And I'm very, very excited to get this into print, get this out to you, and let you enjoy M Squad #1. So thank you all for watching the video. Whether if you watched it in repeat, thank you so much. Look for another live update on May 1st. I'll probably go live on Facebook, though we'll see. Probably live on Facebook to announce the launch of M Squad #1, May 1st. Watch for it there. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.